On November 30th, Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, Chrystia Freeland, delivered her first fall economic statement, renewing the federal government's fiscal policy to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic and develop Canada's recovery plan. The fiscal update calculates that the deficit will reach $381.6 billion by the end of March 2021 and could rise even higher, depending on future lockdowns and the number of cases. With us to discuss the Trudeau government's 2020 fall economic update and response to the pandemic, we're happy to have the Honorable Ahmed Hussen, the Minister of Families, Children and Social Development. Minister, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. So, what is the most important takeaway from the 2020 fall economic statement?
Two things, two main themes. One is to continue to help Canadian businesses, Canadian families, Canadian children and workers to get through this COVID-19 pandemic. And the second theme of the fall economic statement was to plan for the recovery phase after COVID-19. So making sure that our economy comes back strong. And, you know, our plan is already working. Our plan for tackling COVID-19 and supporting Canadians has been having a positive effect. And the proof is the fact that almost 80% of the jobs that we lost early in the pandemic are now back. Those jobs have been recovered. Compare that with only 50% of the jobs coming back in the United States. So our plan is working. Our measures to help Canadian workers and businesses and families are working, and we'll continue to do that until we recover from this pandemic. And then once for the recovery, the fall economic statement spoke about spending money to stimulate the economy and to do a number of other things to make sure that we recover better and stronger.
But how easy is it to plan for something like this? For instance, the United Kingdom have identified a new COVID-19 strain that spreads much faster.
Yes.
Can something like this derail the federal government's fiscal strategy to tackle the COVID-19 pandemic altogether?
Well, we have already taken measures against that. As you know, we announced 2 days ago that we will be banning flights from the UK until the foreseeable future. So that we can find out a little bit more about this new variant of COVID-19, you know, we are seeing the beginning of the end. That is why you're seeing COVID-19 virus being tackled by the vaccine now. We have one vaccine that has been approved in Canada, the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine, which is already being distributed to Canadian essential workers and seniors in long-term care centers. The Moderna vaccine is going through the approvals process. If it's approved very quickly, we can move very quickly. We already have a distribution plan in place. You're beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. We're not done with COVID-19 yet, but we're beginning to see the hope because vaccines are here. And we're gonna obviously vaccinate as many people as possible, but we have to also plan for life after COVID, and that is what the fall economic statement was about: spending 3 to 4% of our GDP on a stimulus package to bring back the economy. Also, putting in place the first pieces in setting up a national system of affordable and high-quality childcare. That is very important because there's many parents, especially women, who are now not working because they cannot afford childcare. We want to empower those people to allow them to go back to work by giving them access to affordable but also high quality and inclusive childcare, because we want those children to succeed in life as well. And so investing in that program, you saw in the fall economic statement, the first stage, the first step, the first significant step, which is a proposal to invest $420 million to hire more early childhood educators. These are the people who work in the childcare sector. We cannot have a national system of more affordable spaces if you don't increase the number of the teachers. That money is also to be used for better training and recruitment and retention. You also saw in the fall economic statement a commitment to spend $20 million to set up a national secretariat for early learning and childcare within the government of Canada to coordinate policy across different ministries and to interact with stakeholders and most importantly, conduct research and data analysis on the best practices. This is something that, when hundreds of thousands of women join the workforce, it increases our GDP. It improves our productivity. It improves our economic performance as a country. So this is the right thing to do. It's also the economically smart thing to do.
There were a number of industries that were mentioned during the fall economic statement. The federal government is spending approximately $1 billion on the aviation industry. However, according to the CBC, Transport Minister Marc Garneau said that the airlines must first refund Canadians before getting
Yes.
any more government aid. So will
Yes.
passengers be getting their money back?
Well, that's the condition. We said that, the condition to access federal help is for the airline industries to be fair to to the passengers and to their customers and to Canadians who have bought those tickets to receive to receive uh, reimbursements, to receive their money back, and only when they do that is can we then allow them to access federal dollars.
So
It's
will
only
each
fair.
airline be treated separately?
Well, we will treat well the for the airline to access the help, they have to do the right thing, which is to give back the money that they owe to the passengers and Canadians who bought these tickets. And I think that's the fair thing to do, and that's something we've heard very clearly from Canadians. And so that's why we put that condition on there. Obviously, each airline will have to make a decision on how to go about that, but that's the condition that they need to meet to access federal dollars.
Can we talk a little bit about the environmental aspects of the fall economic statement?
Correct. You know, part of building back is building back better. We don't want to do the same thing uh, that we were doing before COVID-19 in the sense that we want to make sure that the people who are excluded from the economy are included in the economy moving forward. We also want to, of course, build on our strong record of tackling climate change by being more ambitious to meet our target of net zero emissions by 2050. To do that, we need to invest in the clean technology sector. And by the way, this is a sector that holds a lot of promise and opportunity for small, medium, and large businesses in Canada.
Yes.
As you know, Canada has free trade agreements with two-thirds of humanity. And so if we are able to make sure that the clean technology sector is supported, that Canadian businesses are able to commercialize their technology abroad and within Canada, this is a huge, huge opportunity for our economy. But also we owe a duty to the world and to our children and grandchildren to make sure that we tackle climate change. Climate change is a real crisis that needs to be tackled, and we have demonstrated leadership on this file and will continue to demonstrate leadership on this file.
How does the federal government think that the oil and gas industry will react to something like this? Because
Well,
we've
look,
heard
we have been
many
a big
times
supporter of
about
the oil and gas
constructing a new
industry.
world after COVID.
No, no. The fact is, we have been strong supporters of the oil and gas sector. We've always said that the environment and the economy go hand in hand. It's not one or the other. We'll continue, of course, to support our oil and gas sector. And in fact, look at our government's record. We purchased the TMX pipeline to ensure that Canadian oil is able to get to international markets. During COVID and even before that, we were helping oil and gas sector workers and their families. So, this is a process. It's not. We know that there will still be a need for oil and gas in the world. That our economy depends to a large extent on the oil and gas sector. So obviously, we're very supportive of that. But what we are also saying is it's also important to meet our obligations to our citizens to tackle climate change very effectively.
In
We
other words,
can't ignore that. It's a real crisis.
in other words, you believe these two industries are fully compatible.
No, what I'm saying is we have to ensure that the economy and the environment go together. Natural resources are a big part of the Canadian economy. So we cannot ignore that. And in fact, we're very supportive of that. But at the same time, we have to also build the economy of the future by investing in clean tech and by also tackling climate change at the same time. That's what smart countries are doing, and we have to do the same thing.
So, to continue with the theme of the economy, the New Democratic Party called for a new tax on wealthy Canadians and another on businesses that have profited excessively during the COVID 19 pandemic. Why did the Liberals, along with some other parties, vote against these taxes?
We're focused on helping Canadian businesses, helping Canadian families and children, and fighting COVID. That has been our focus. We will have a lot of time to debate tax policy uh, in Parliament after the pandemic. But right now, Canadians want us to focus on fighting COVID,
Mm-hmm.
helping Canadians get through COVID, making sure that we vaccinate everyone who wants to be vaccinated, making sure that our businesses survive. There's many businesses that are in trouble, and through the Canada Emergency Wage Subsidy, we're ensuring that they live to see the end of COVID and that they thrive after that. 75%, up to 75% of the wages of eligible businesses are being met by the government of Canada because we know those workers need to be supported. Their families need to be supported. We're increasing the Canada Child Benefit. We're making sure that we continue to invest in affordable housing through things like the Rapid Housing Initiative, which is going to tackle the needs of vulnerable people when it comes to severe housing need, especially connected to COVID and its displacement of these people. So we're focused exclusively on enabling Canadians to make sure that that they get through COVID, that we fight this pandemic, that we enable people to survive economically, and then build for a stronger economy coming out of it.
So, the money from this tax, though, couldn't have gone to support these social programs?
Well, it's one proposal among many. There are some on the other side of Parliament who believe that we shouldn't even help workers. They think the Canada Emergency Response Benefit was too big.
Mm-hmm.
They think that supporting businesses is not the way to go. So different parties have come up with different ideas, but I believe Canadians want us to focus on the pandemic. We've been doing exactly that. We had the fiscal firepower going into the pandemic to fight this pandemic and to also help Canadians at the same time. There will be a lot of time to debate tax policy and who needs to pay more and we welcome those debates. But right now, I believe Canadians want us to focus on the fight against COVID-19 and especially to help the most vulnerable, including seniors in long-term care centers.
You just made reference to the vaccinations. Does the federal
Yes.
government know when the general population will start getting vaccinated? Because we've heard that it's going to come in phases. First, we heard about
Yeah.
front line workers, then the elderly and people with pre existing conditions, and finally, the general population. When do you believe this will happen?
That's a difficult question to answer because it also depends on how many vaccine candidates get approval. Right now, there's only one vaccine has been approved in Canada, which is the Pfizer BioNTech vaccine. Moderna is going through the process, uh, the approvals process. The more vaccine companies get approved in Canada, the more people we will be able to help. But even with respect to Pfizer and Moderna, we have pre-ordered millions of doses from them. So obviously, and we have a distribution plan in place. We're being assisted by the Canadian Armed Forces, the Canadian military. They're excellent at logistical responses to these kinds of emergencies. We will make sure that we vaccinate every Canadian that wishes to be vaccinated. How it's going to play out, we have a very strong plan. We think by the end of summer next year, every Canadian that wants to be vaccinated will be vaccinated. But again, your question is tough to answer because the vaccine candidates have to go through the Health Canada approval process, which is independent. They have to see that these vaccine candidates are safe for usage in Canada by Canadians. That's why Pfizer was the first one to be approved. Moderna is going through the process. We hope it gets approved. So it depends on the approval process, but as soon as a vaccine is approved, we already have a distribution plan in place, and we move very quickly to distribution. Let me give you an example.
Yes.
Pfizer was approved on a Thursday, and then the Monday after that, 3 days after that, it was being distributed. So that's how quickly we can turn it around upon approval.
That was actually very, very impressive. Minister, I don't want to take up much more of your time. Is there anything you would like to add?
Well, I just want to say that we'll continue to support Canadian families, Canadian workers, Canadian children, and businesses. We're increasing the Canada Child Benefit for children under the age of 6 who are already receiving the Canada Child Benefit. We're enabling them to access an additional $1,200 for the year of 2021. We have invested $1 billion additional dollars in a new program called the Rapid Housing Initiative, which will build 3,000 affordable housing units across Canada. The National Housing Strategy continues. We have a federal program called Reaching Home, which is tackling homelessness. We provided additional dollars there to 62 communities, 62 regions of Canada that are tackling homelessness. An additional $207.5 million, then an additional $237 million, and now in the fall economic statement, an additional $300 million for Reaching Home alone. So between that and the Rapid Housing Initiative and the increases we're seeing in the National Housing Strategy programs, we're really working hard to make sure that every single Canadian has a safe and affordable place to call home. We've provided a little bit more support to seniors, to families with children, to workers, businesses. And our focus is to make sure that our economy bounces back faster. The alternative to not doing that is that our economy, people would go through a much painful experience. Our economic recovery would take longer, it would be weaker and slower. That's what happened in 2008 after the recession, and the Conservatives refused to spend and invest in Canadian families and
Yes.
communities. We're taking a different approach, and our plan is working. As I said, 80% of the jobs that were lost early in the pandemic have been recovered in Canada. Those jobs have come back
Hmm.
because we're supporting people. And so we want to continue to do that until we are out of COVID-19 pandemic.
Austerity
And
measures don't
hopefully,
work and they don't bring
and we,
back jobs.
sorry?
Austerity measures don't work. They don't bring back jobs, as we've seen.
That's right. Austerity has been proven not to work. It has been proven not to work in many countries around the world. We choose to invest in people. It's not just the right thing to do, it's the smart thing to do economically. Last but not least, we live in a democracy. If someone does not want to be vaccinated, they don't have to be.
Mhm.
But I hope you can help the public health officials to spread the message that vaccination is very important, that people need to be vaccinated, that they should take the opportunity to be vaccinated. We are making the vaccine 100% free so that Canadians don't have to worry about the cost. Please be vaccinated, because by getting vaccinated, you're not only keeping yourself safe, you're keeping everyone else safe. And we need people to be vaccinated so that we can get rid of COVID-19 pandemic.
And that's a great way to end. That was the Honorable Ahmed
Thank you.
Hussen, the Minister of Families, Children, and Social Development. Minister, thank you so much and have a happy holidays.